welcome back. It's Friday. It's been a few days, obviously. I uploaded Saturday and Sunday from last week. I think on like Tuesday or Wednesday, one of the two. And then I just kind of like took a break because I really needed to kind of focus on some other stuff around the house, get some other projects done. But we're on a special mission today. So last week on Saturday, I ended up going to the Air Force Falcons game in the evening with my mom and my wife. Unfortunately, when we were leaving, my wife freaking lost her ID. So we are on the mission to go recover it because apparently it is at Lost and Found. And it's gonna be a heck of a ride because I got about an hour just in one direction. So theoretically, this will be the longest stint in like one direction I've done on this bike since I've owned it. I mean, I'm not scared or anything, but it's a big moment. You'll also notice this is a totally new setup for the record. We are doing 4K 60 frames this time, and I messed with the mic settings again, so we'll see how it turns out. I think I figured out what the hell was happening with it. The settings, for whatever dumb reason, kept getting messed with. Like the quick switch button or whatever it was. There's a little button on the side that turns it on. It also like quick switches modes and things. That stupid button was getting bumped somehow, and it was triggering the modes to change. So like all my pre-built microphone settings and video settings were getting jacked up like mid-ride. So like, for instance, the microphone in the last video, it popped up to 0 gain instead of -12, which was not great. It was so loud that even adjusting it in post was like a total nightmare. Why do people do this? You know we're merging. I don't really understand that shit. Like, yeah, double dumbass on the person that was in front of me trying to merge, but at the same time, like, dude, come on. I just had some mud or something fling onto my damn windscreen. Now it looks ridiculous. Alright, that's a little better. I have to clean it off once I get down there. So I've been watching this show, Alien Earth, because I'm a big Aliens fan. I wasn't a huge fan of the Covenant movies. Like, they're still good in their own right, and I like, you know, kind of the theme that they have in them. It's something different. But it's not as good as the originals. I mean, excluding Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection, because both of those movies were questionable, to say the least. I mean, Alien Resurrection has its own kind of campy fun to it. And technically for the style, the way that they did that was actually not terrible. It's just the story itself is kind of shit. You know, I don't totally hate the way they did all the aliens and stuff and the action sequences. Everything actually looks really good in that movie for the most part. It's just the story sucks. Much like Alien 3. Alien 3, same kind of deal. Like, I don't know what they were thinking when they put that together, but the fact that Sigourney Weaver even hated it, I mean, it should tell you a lot. It didn't make a whole lot of sense coming off of the second one with Bill Paxton and all those guys. That might actually be my favorite Alien movie, is Aliens, just because of how much action there is in it. The original Alien, though, you can't beat it because it's, you know, it's a true horror classic. That said, though, if we look back at like the Covenant movies, the original Covenant, where they basically meet the engineer, and then, well, shit, I think I got it all messed up, right? Because it's Alien Covenant, and then it's Prometheus. Yeah, there we go. I knew I'd remember it. Yeah, like, Prometheus was a very interesting take on the Alien series, for sure. Not necessarily bad, not necessarily good, just different, right? Alien Covenant, though, that was a good movie. It just wasn't fantastic. Like, the fact that the xenomorph pops out of the captain and immediately starts taking form rather than actually, like, cocooning and becoming a bigger alien. I know that there's, like, some reasoning behind why they did that, but it still is goofy as hell considering, like, all the previous lore, so to speak, that's been built up around those damn things. So, there's that. But Alien Earth. So, I don't know if any of you guys have been watching it, but, like, the idea is it more or less starts on a ship kind of similar to, like, the Nostromo, but it's more of a scientific vessel. And they've been gone, like, 60 some odd years or whatever on this mission. And when they come back, like, all hell breaks loose because all of their specimens that they've captured have more or less, like, well, some of them have broken loose and started killing people, and, you know, it's like bad news bears, right? Like, the worst shit starts happening. And of course, the xenomorph basically wrecks the place to the point where the ship crash lands on Earth. Meanwhile, we get introduced to the fact that Weyland-Yutani is not the only corporation out there. There's another corp out there called Prodigy, where the ship basically lands in their territory, and they basically get dibs to recovering all this shit, right? It's good from that aspect. Like, it brings a whole new dynamic to the whole series, and they're, like, trying to make an understanding of how, like, interact and, you know, what their primary functions are. I mean, most of them are basically, like, eat, kill, eat, and that's about it, right? But we learned so much about the Xeno and its behaviors and shit. And I don't know if necessarily this is going to become, like, canon, so to speak, or, like, the gospel of how the aliens actually integrate into the rest of the movies and the series and stuff. But the fact that they introduce, like, a couple new dynamics and a couple different types of species that are actually at, you know, in a battle more or less with the xenomorph, not just like the Predator, it kind of opens up that whole idea that, hey, there might be way more alien species out there that are intelligent enough to know that the Xeno is not a good thing to have running around the galaxy unchecked, right? And they know how dangerous that species is. But the thing that they introduce that kind of made a lot of people, like, I don't know if I'd say pissed, but just, like, upset, was the fact that dying children, more or less, with, like, brain tumors and cancer and things like that get turned into hybrids. So they basically take their consciousness and download it into a synth, and then they more or less become, you know, immortal. Which is interesting. It's a different concept. I actually had this discussion with one of my coworkers, but there's a game called Soma that was released a few years back that kind of brought a similar idea to the table, that humans can download into robots or AI, more or less. But what you realize in that game, what you come to find out, is that you're a copy of your consciousness. You're not a direct transfer of your consciousness. So, for instance, if I was to get transferred into a robot or an android or whatever, it would just be a copy of my consciousness. It wouldn't actually be me. So when I die, and a copy of me continues to exist. So it begs the question, what are these hybrids? Are they actual direct transfers of the consciousness? Or are they copies? And the real kids actually really did die. They never really get to that in the series, at least from my knowledge. But regardless, the lead hybrid, so to speak, Wendy, because they're all themed around, like, Peter Pan and, like, the Lost Boys, right? Wendy learns how to speak alien. like xenomorph during all of this. And I won't spoil too much of it, but honestly, like, it's such an interesting concept to the whole universe, and how the hybrids more or less kind of turn into like all the bad synths we've seen over the fucking decades in this series, just with a higher awareness and a higher consciousness than just being programming, because they actually think and rationalize for themselves beyond what a synth can, you know, outside of some kind of like primary directives. It's a really interesting series. I like it. I really do. I was actually really bummed that we only got 8 episodes. But the way that they left it kind of on a cliffhanger at the end, oh, it was so good. I know a lot of people are going to disagree that did see it because, you know, they're more purist about this kind of shit. But I like the direction that this is taking. It's something different, it's something new, it's something fresh. And it's fun. It's really enjoyable. I liked it a lot. So anyway, I finished that up. Unfortunately, FX hasn't confirmed if they're going to do a season 2 or not. Well, Disney hasn't, because I guess they own FX now. But if I had to guess, it's probably going to happen, just because there was such a huge, like, positive support for it. I mean, even Sigourney Weaver came out and she actually loves it. She's been saying it's a great series, a great concept. Like, the storyline isn't just like, oh, the alien's going around killing every single freaking person out there. Like, no, there's actually a lot of deception, greed, and, like, rationalization choices and consequences for every action that everybody does. This section of highway, I swear, it's so bumpy, just constantly bouncing around. I mentioned this in the last video. The Rocksteady on the camera actually does a really good job of eliminating a lot of that, so you can't actually see it too much. But to me, it's just like obnoxious. I know the concrete lasts longer because of like all of our, you know, ice and snowstorms that we get out here, but just give me smooth asphalt. It's so much better than this crap. Especially with all this grooved pavement. You can see it in the center there. That actually brings up a really good point. So, I don't know if any of you have been tracking Doodle on a Motorcycle's wreck and like the aftermath with the Janus motorcycles. She finally posted up like a response video to all these people that have more or less been, you know, analyzing and questioning her wreck and like how safe the Janus motorcycle is versus like her experience level and the type of road she was on and so on and so forth. So she posted a response and she's more or less trying to defend Janus. She said she'd only been riding the bike for like 30 minutes prior to the wreck, so she wasn't super experienced with the bike itself. But if you look back at her history, she's got quite a lot of riding experience. She's not exactly a noob, which is good, but at the same time, the fact that she even calls out during the video that grooved pavement could have been... Ooh, something died here. Grooved pavement could have been a huge contributing factor to all this was actually kind of humorous to me, because I thought that was pretty common knowledge to most experienced riders, that grooved pavement can fuck you up if you're not careful. Especially if you're on a tire that's only like 80 millimeters wide. Like seriously, the measurements on those tires that are on that Janus motorcycle that doesn't have a whole lot of great suspension to begin with, kind of insane. I never knew just how skinny those tires were, but after hearing it from, who was it? Yami Noob, who actually broke down the bike and like described what contributed to the crash and like how that bike is built. Oh man, no wonder she wrecked. I am by no means an expert in all this shit. I'm just gonna put that out there right now. But that being said, that bike should not be going anywhere near 60 miles an hour. So when she wrecked at 60, on pavement that was like grooved and under construction and everything. It was just like a perfect storm of shit happening all at once, because that suspension is absolute like fucking trash for any kind of fucking use beyond like 45 miles an hour safely, especially on stupid thin tires. It was just insane to me. The whole setup of the situation between the bike, the tires, the suspension, the pavement, all of it. It's just the speed. It's just a perfect storm to lead into the situation where she had her like death wobble, more or less. I'd be willing to bet you what she was doing, because I think she even said it, was she was like lightening her grip, which is typically what you're supposed to do when you start getting a tank slapper, and let off the throttle, which I don't think she really did. And it just got to the point where it just like, wham, right? Just got worse and worse and worse, to the point where she couldn't recover it and went down. But again, we're talking about a bike that has like an 80 millimeter tire up front at the most, 90 millimeters in the rear or something along those lines. Super thin. So if you're curious about the kind of bike it was, it's called the Halcyon 250 by Janus, Janus. And it's supposed to be like a throwback bike to like the 1920s style motorcycles of the era. But they put in like this overpowered, juiced up, Chinese engine with like, I think it was like 15 horsepower or something like that. Compared to what bikes of that era would have been running, especially running on bias ply freaking tires instead of radial tires, which almost every single modern motorcycle nowadays runs on. It's just a perfect storm of shit. If anyone's even remotely considering getting one of those, it's fine. Just don't use it above like 40, 45 miles an hour. Use it as like a city cruiser, or just like a, I'm popping down to get coffee kind of bike. It's a cafe bike. It is not meant for that kind of speed. I'll give you a great example. My R1150R, there's a reason it was governed to 120 miles an hour. That bike should not be exceeding that. It's just not meant to, right? And even then, 120 miles an hour was really pushing it. The one time that I actually like consistently was doing that for any length of time, it was sketchy, because it legitimately was gear limited. It wasn't even like restricted by ECU tuning or anything like that. It's a pretty nice day today. 77 degrees according to the bike at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm trying to get this done and get this ID recovered early, so that way I can actually do some other shit today. So I did go talk to my buddy Austin that sold me this bike, and I kind of discussed with him what's been going through my head about owning this thing and what I want to do for the future. And I did go sit on all of the Street Fighters that they had in their possession. So we're talking brand new V2s and V4s, S and regular, older V2s and V4s from the previous generation. But I literally went and I sat on all these bikes to get kind of an idea of, what's the most comfortable for me. And strangely, the old V2 is more comfortable than the old V4, and also more comfortable than the new V2. But the new V4 is super comfortable compared to all of them. I don't know what it is about the way they designed the tanks and the bodywork and stuff. It's wild to me how all the trims actually don't share a whole lot together in terms of the tank design and the seat design. You'd think there'd be some continuity between all four of them, but the reality is they're all little slight differences between them. Like, the biggest thing that I noticed was my actual knee placement. So for instance, on the new V2, my knee actually was running into like this, bumped out piece of bodywork that was like right under the tank. And then on the new V4, that piece doesn't exist. It's like smoothed out. It's like scalloped out of the bike. And then like the new V2 or the old V2, it's kind of similar, but it has more of an upright position, so it's more comfortable. Whereas like the old V4, it's more narrow in the tank, and it actually has more of a like downward rake. So between like all four bikes, the new V4 is definitely the most comfortable that I sat on out of all the bikes I sat on. And I kind of shook my head and I looked at Austin and I'm like, dude, why? Like, why does this happen? So we kind of discussed plans on how we're going to move forward from that. And I think we've kind of come to the conclusion that obviously right now is not a good time. We need to start thinking more seriously around March, April, if we're actually going to do a swap or not. Because this thing still has plenty of warranty and time left on it, right? Which makes it that much more valuable even as a used bike. But if they don't give me like a good value on this thing in a swap for a V4, then what's the point? Might as well try my luck at selling this thing outright, considering the fact that I literally own the title to this. It's not financed. I paid cash for this bike, and I plan to pay cash for the V4. I don't want to finance anything. I want to just own it, be done with it. I'm doing really good about paying down a lot of stuff and debt. Like, honestly, the only debt I really have to speak of is my car and my house. And a little bit on my credit card, not much. Like, it used to be a lot on my credit card, but I paid down so much of it that I'm literally down to the point where it doesn't even matter. So in other news, we're at 528 miles. Woohoo! By the end of this ride, we should be basically ready for the first service. So I can get this thing in, get it over with, get it done, get it all checked over, make sure everything's running good, have them check out this weird stumbly idle and see if they can adjust it at all. Yeah. I mean, I might be without the bike for a little bit, but who cares? At least it's getting properly serviced for a change. I mean, it is a brand new bike still, basically. It definitely needs the first check over. Well, that's one way of blocking the sun. Hopefully they don't find anything super crazy that needs to be fixed or anything like that. I definitely do want to mention the speedo to them and see if it's a calibration thing or if they can even, adjust it. My guess is probably not, but hard to know. I'm going to see if I can get my damn cruise control to actually activate. There it is. Ugh. I needed a break. It's a long time to be on the throttle. I'm not even putting a whole lot of weight in the clip-ons, and it still felt like a lot. Yeah, last time that I tried to use the damn cruise control, it wasn't working. You guys remember that. So it's good to finally have it working properly. Got that tingly sensation in my hand. That's not a good thing. Definitely need to give it a rest. So this is the downfall of having a sport bike, right? You're in a compromised position as opposed to just riding more comfortably like you're on a sofa. And because of that, you're definitely putting more weight on the front of the bike. I mean, that's intentional by design, so that way it can corner better. You're just in a more aggressive attack stance, basically. But to have cruise control on a bike like this is definitely a godsend. It's so nice. It makes riding at longer distances that much more comfortable. And it's obviously not super comfortable. It's definitely better. As you can see, it's not like I have a whole lot of weight on my wrists. I'm barely on my wrist. And what's helping with that is the fact that I'm actually up in the wind a little bit, so it's actually keeping my body more upright without having to really squeeze my legs. I had a feeling there was going to be some tomfuckery in here. They're doing some kind of new exit / bridge here. And you can see the way they designed it. It almost looks like it's bowed right there in the center. It doesn't look quite right. I'm still not quite sure what the hell they're building here in terms of a road. But my guess is it's probably some kind of connector that has to lead over into that area. I used to hate coming down here all the time. I still don't really love coming down here just because it's kind of wide open. But at least the scenery is nice. It's a lot better than trying to travel all the way over to frickin' Kansas. There's a whole lot of nothing out there until you actually get beyond Kansas. The majority of the flat parts of Kansas anyway. Can't remember which base it is, but if you're traveling down I-70, you'll pass it. It's a big army base. The big red one is there. They have Apaches, RPAs, Black Hawks, you know, like a whole division basically, or a battalion, I should say. And it's funny because I'm pretty sure those RPAs, they're old school Predators. I'm pretty sure those were all Air Force Predators at one point or another, and we just gave them to them. Because they're like, oh yeah, we could use those. It's like, okay, well, we're moving on to bigger and better things anyway, so have fun. But that stretch through there, what I'm trying to get at is, like, it actually gets into, like, kind of canyon twisties and, like, trees and rocks. There's a lot more scenery out there than just big flat plains. It's actually pretty nice going through there. It's like the one part of Kansas that I'm actually like, dude, this is not so bad. Even though it's out there, it's not so bad. I think if I remember, KSU is actually out there as well. Could be wrong, but I know one of the big universities is out there. It's not the Jayhawks, it's the other ones. You know, the Purple Panthers or whatever the hell their name is. I can't remember, but ooh, GTR. I miss my GTR. I've never actually talked about my GTR, have I? Maybe I have. Oh well, we'll do a quick recap. So, my GTR, when I got it, I traded a 2021 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 4xe that I had on like metal cloak suspension and a couple other crazy mods. And mind you, I think the 4xe had like, I don't know, 10,000 miles on it. It didn't have a ton. But I was just kind of at that stage with the Jeep that I was like, okay, this isn't really what I had hoped it'd be. Not super thrilled with it. So I got a wild hair up my ass to go after a GTR, and I found one locally that was in gun metallic. It had 26,000 miles on it. It was an 09. It had all kinds of mods done to it already. It had like upgraded wheels and tires from Rohana and Pilot Sport 4S's. It had like 345 section width rear tires and 285 fronts. So it was already set up like maxed out on the tire size, right? Without like doing any crazy tub mods and shit. Had basic bolt-ons for the most part. So it was like intakes, exhaust, full exhaust basically, with mini cats. And then it had custom dyno tuning through Cobb. I think it went through, Tobes Performance is who tuned it. So it was tuned before I got it. Had transmission tuning as well. I think on 91 it was making like 550 or 575 wheel, something along those lines. Nothing crazy, but you know, good amount of power. And I think it had an E85 tune. I'm not sure, but it was a good amount of power for me on pump gas. So you know, I was like, I don't need more than this. This is enough for what I was going to use it as daily use. I think it had AM, charge pipes, tile blow-off valves, and a few other knickknacks here and there. Nothing crazy. It was just like basic bolt-ons, right? Plenty of power. And I drove that thing for about 6 months and realized, I'm like, oh, this was a mistake. I love this car to death, but this is a disservice to this car to be using it every day. It can do it, but it doesn't want to. So I ended up getting rid of it, and I got another Jeep. And that was a stupid decision, because what I should have done is I should have got rid of my M3 at that time, swapped my GTR to my fun toy, and then just bought something cheap to frickin' daily. Knowing what I know now, that's what I would have done. So I don't know how picky these guys are going to be about me going through the gate with the camera, so we'll see what happens here. I might have to turn you guys off. But this is the Air Force Academy. We'll see how picky they get. These guys are usually pretty good about this kind of stuff. Yeah, we're going to have to use our ID. So that means I'm going to have to turn you guys off. Sorry, it is what it is. We'll pick this back up when I get through the gate and I get to a section where I actually can record, because chances are they're probably going to be like, yeah, no recording, dude. All right, everybody, welcome on base. So this is the Air Force Academy. We are definitely not going to be going anywhere near any areas that are sensitive. I absolutely will not do that. So they have static displays out here for most people to actually go and check out. This is pretty normal stuff, nothing crazy. So there's an old B-52, obviously. And then I think it's a CH-53. I could be totally wrong on that. I don't really know my helicopters too awful well. But being out here in the stadium area and stuff is totally fine. It's nothing out of the ordinary, nothing crazy. You know, they're not going to get pissy about you recording this because it's all pretty common knowledge. I mean, for the most part, I'm sure most of the academy has probably been recorded at this point. But I don't even want to run that risk. I don't want to get in trouble. I'd rather keep my security clearance and not be that guy that ends up getting indicted or, you know, sent to Leavenworth and making big rocks into small rocks for no reason, because that would suck. But it's a pretty nice base as far as the academy goes, at least. It's definitely better than my experience with at least one of the other academies I've been to. I've never been to Annapolis or West Point, so I have no real comparison from that aspect. But from the aspect of like going to the Citadel out in South Carolina, that place is so like tiny in terms of scale compared to this place. So there's actually like a whole new section that they added to this. It's a big add-on that they did to the stadium. It's really nice, actually. You can see it right there. So that whole eastern side of the stadium is brand new. But there should be a gate up here where they have Lost and Found that I gotta go and actually pick all this stuff up. All right. Stage 1 is complete. Stage 2, get home in one piece. So you might notice a little glider there in the background. So they actually do glider training out here. And I think it's actually part of the student programs, if I'm not mistaken. Well, I say student, I mean cadet. What you missed is there was another one earlier. I don't know where he went to, but he's not moving that fast. The planes that they use to tow these gliders, I think they maybe max out at like 150 shaft horsepower or whatever it is. You know, they tow these gliders up so they can get into the thermals and everything, but they're super slow, especially on a windy day like today. So that's one thing I noticed when I was going up there to retrieve the ID, is the wind is actually picking up and it's coming out of the north. I don't know if that's going to change or not by the time we get on the highway, but it means it's probably going to be a rough ride on the way back. But yeah, the Cusera Center, or Cusero, or Cujero, I have no idea how to pronounce it. It's brand new, and it's on the visitor side of the stadium, and they've got like big ass, you know, ticket booths and vendors, well, like Air Force vendors for like food and drinks, contactless payment for like just getting drinks. So like literally you can just grab whatever you want, pay for it, and there's like an attendant that's just making sure that you're actually paying for stuff. And then they have like a whole new team shop, because it used to operate out of like this big trailer that they pull out. Now it actually has its no kidding team store that's attached to the actual stadium. So that's super cool. But again, it's like coordinated with like Fanatics. Some of the stuff is like a little overpriced in my opinion for what you're getting, but it's still pretty nice quality, so it's not the end of the world. Yeah, you don't yield to me, I yield to you. Fucking duh. Looking at me like I'm breaking the law. Like, no, you're actually fucking not following what you should be doing in a roundabout. This is part of the problem with Colorado Springs for me, is there's too many fucking idiots that live down here. They all don't know how to drive for shit. And the ones that do know how to drive all drive like shitheads. Alright, here we go, return journey. Couldn't tell if that was an R6, R1, or an R9. Honestly, I had no idea. So back into the saddle on the way home. It is definitely windier, because I am definitely behind a truck that I should not be behind, because he's causing all kinds of turbulence. And this is not a good time. I'm really curious how much of this video I'm actually going to clip down, just because this was a really long one. But I think after this, I definitely need to get this thing scheduled up so that way it can go in for its first service. It's definitely going to have enough mileage to count. Or at least close enough that it's not going to matter. That's for damn sure. Colorado chain law is in effect. We're starting to get snow up in the country again. So if you don't know, Colorado has a chain law, and that applies to all commercial vehicles. But on top of that, we actually have a winter tire law as well. So what do I mean by winter tire law? Well, basically what I'm saying is all cars and vehicles that are on highways, they actually have to have winter rated tires. Like, that's a requirement. So in other words, like standard Jeep, it doesn't matter if it's a mud and snow. If it's not winter rated, it's technically not legal. But because it has four-wheel drive, it is legal. So they actually have like little like secondary rules that apply to the tires and the vehicles themselves. So as long as you have like all seasons, for instance, and you have four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, it's totally fine. But if you don't have that and you just have like front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive, you have to have a combination of like snows or studded snows or chains or socks or something. Like they actually require this, and if you don't have it, they'll literally pull you over and give you a ticket for it. And it's a pretty hefty fine from what I understand. I've never personally had that issue because I always run some kind of winter tire setup on regardless of what kind of car I have. And the reason being is pure simplicity. Like, you just don't run in Colorado winter with the crap conditions that we get without them. You just don't do it. It's something you just don't do. Because every single person that's ever been out there and said, oh, you don't need winter tires, they end up going out there and they're the ones that end up getting stuck, spin out, or crash. It's logic, right? Like, this has been beaten to death and tested over and over and over and over again with rear-wheel drive performance cars, especially at like a small incline. We're talking like 2 degrees or something like that, you know, not a lot. Because I think the highest grade we have out here is like 8%. I don't remember, but it's not very tall. But like when you're driving on it, it seems like a lot. But again, if you're going up a hill like that and you don't have proper winter traction, I mean, you're going nowhere. But every time they throw it on winter tires, rear-wheel drive cars at least, hell, even all-wheel drive cars, like just comparing all season versus winter, the difference is insane. Like, you just instantly have that grip. And the reason that they work so well is because winter tires actually hold on to the actual snow itself. You know, you would think with those kind of lugs and everything that it would like clear out and it would just bite in, right? That's actually counter to what they're designed to do. What they're designed to do is actually grab onto the snow and hold onto it to increase the amount of traction and friction that it has on the slippery surface. They don't just like clear out. It's not like a mud tire where a mud tire is actually designed to sling the mud out of the grooves. It's more like an all-terrain. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm sure a lot of you are probably going like, yeah, duh, I already know that, duh. This is more for the people that don't know. This is, you know, this is not exactly common knowledge for people that don't deal with snow. And the snows out here can be like super variable. I mean, we're talking, we could have, you know, like one day it could just drop 2 feet, right? We could just have a ton of snow. And another day, we could have like a dusting that melts within like an hour. And for like the span of the winter season, it could either be like a few pop-up storms here and there that are just like really light and wet, or really light and dry and they just like burn off really quick. Or they could just be like consecutive heavy storms, whether that's dry or light snow. We'll just get like tons of snowpack for the year. Colorado's really weird. We don't have like a set snowpack. It just kind of happens however it decides to happen, because we're in this weird fringe zone every year. You know, it depends upon how the jet stream basically hits us. It's either a little lower or a little higher, and depending upon how it hits us, it affects how much snowfall we get for that season. And sometimes that snow can literally go all the way into like June. I've literally seen it snow at the beginning of June. And you're just thinking, like, dude, it's summer. What the hell are you doing? Who gave Mother Nature a bottle of whiskey? And what do you mean by dry or light or wet snow? Well, for those that don't know, we actually do have like a couple different types of snow that we get. The most common ones are dry and wet. Wet snow is really moisture dense, so it ends up being really slushy and, you know, looks like something you would see like from a 7-Eleven coming out of, you know, your big gulp, basically. It's just really wet and dense snow, and it gets super slick and icy, and it sucks. But then we also get the dry snow, which, if it's done like any kind of wet, rainy kind of sleet prior to actually coming down, becomes one of the most dangerous types of snowfalls that we ever see out here, especially if it's just light, dry, powdery shit. Because what'll happen is that it'll get cold enough for it to snow after it's basically done this rainy surface layer, but that surface layer hasn't had time to actually burn off and get warm. So what'll happen is it'll get wet, and then it'll freeze into an ice layer that's underneath this dry, like super, like powdery type of snow that provides almost zero traction, even with winter tires. Like, you basically have to be on studs to really get the grip, and that surface layer literally just slides right off the ice, like, immediately. It's like one of the lowest friction components out there. I would argue that it's worse than having the slush wet snow. It's the stuff that really is deceptive in how much grip you actually have. I ran into it a couple times back in the day when I had my Hellcat. I should say both my Hellcats, because I ran Pilot Alpines on both of them. But I ran the Pilot Alpine winter tires on that just so I could get around in the wintertime. And it actually was a really good winter vehicle as long as the snow didn't stack up beyond like 8 inches. Anything beyond that, and forget it, it just didn't want to go. And there was just not enough ground clearance. But don't let people fool you. The Hellcat Charger is actually a really good snow vehicle if you have the proper tires. Just put it into eco mode, let it shift, you know, from second gear at a stop. It's great. Honestly, one of the best vehicles I've ever used in the snow. Not even gonna lie. You guys might think I'm crazy, but seriously, it made all the difference in the world doing that. The one time that I got caught out, or a couple times I should say, it's like 2 or 3 different times that I can remember, where I got caught out in that dry, powdery shit with winter tires attached on the Hellcat. Oh my god. Forget it. Like, traction was basically at a premium. Good luck trying to get any kind of traction on that stuff. Especially with a rear-wheel drive car that even in eco mode is still pumping out like 500 horsepower and weighs like 4,200 pounds. What's this guy on? Nice. I love how the Ducati guys in general usually don't view scramblers as real Ducatis, even though it literally is a Ducati product. God, this stretch of highway has just gotten worse over the years. It's like so bouncy. You can literally see it in comparison to the other stretches that I've been in. It's just like the Rocksteady is probably helping mitigate it a bunch, but it's just it's rough. Oh my god, get me through this area. This is the worst. Whew. It's so bumpy. Why don't you adjust your suspension for it? I have. The suspension doesn't like it. It's a wheelbase problem, not a suspension problem. I've got the suspension pretty well dialed in for my weight, considering I haven't had to change any of the cores in the front forks. I've even got it set up fairly soft. Like, if I was to just, you know, increase the amount of dampening to counteract this, it'd probably be even worse, because it'd just be like a washboard. Oh shit, low on fuel. No. Had a feeling it was going to happen at some point, considering I didn't top up before I left. I think we figured out I have a gallon and a half, or a gallon, at least a gallon in reserve. Based on the mileage I should have enough to get home, especially since everybody else is basically stopping for no fucking reason trying to get merged onto the highway. Oh, that's why we're doing this crap. Just chill out here for a little bit. I don't really know what speed I'm doing, but I'm trying to conserve, not burn, because I don't want to end up on the side of the road. I think I can make it there on what I've got. I don't really want this to become an endurance test, but it kind of is. I wish it would let me know how far I went on the tank before it started, because then I could basically do some rough math and figure out like what my endurance really is. Because if I've already done 7 miles and I'm down to like a gallon and a quarter or gallon in terms of fuel, I basically have like 25 miles of range-ish, and that's being conservative. I know I probably should have topped off before I did this trip, but I really kind of wanted to push it intentionally just to see what would happen. So at least when we stop, I'll have a good idea of like, okay, this is what I can expect from this thing. I really don't want to get off on Parker Road and deal with that nonsense trying to get gas over there. Besides, I'm already stuck in at this point. I might as well just get it over with. It's not 15 miles to the nearest station, I can tell you that much. Come on, Rosa. You got this. We can make it. I know you're not a fan of being on fumes. I love the fact that this guy is basically right frigging next to me in his stupid minivan. Yeah, we're gonna make it. We got plenty of range. Just looking at it, we basically got like another 10 miles, and it's not even 10 miles to the station. We got like 5. It's not bad at all. Worst case scenario, we'll basically be at the on-ramp, so that way I can just walk it up the hill. Shouldn't have to, but, you know, at least we made it this far, right? Yeah, we got plenty. We're good. It'd be interesting to see how much fuel is actually in the tank